I'd like to call to order the work session for the month of November for the Marion City Council, City of Taneytown, and ask Councilman Wentz to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. It feels more like December than November, but I guess we'll survive.
Not the temperature I was used to 3 days.
Yeah.
2 days ago.
I heard that.
The weekend. That's what somebody told me that. Carl said, what's happening this weekend? Snow.
Well, for the first order of business tonight, I have something that I like especially to do, and that is make proclamations. That's one of the things mayors get to do that is pretty special, I think. And the proclamation I have tonight is to declare November Municipal Government Works Month. So if you don't mind, let me read this proclamation and let it be recorded as such. It's a proclamation from the City of Taneytown, Maryland. The Mayor and City Council of the City of Taneytown, Maryland proclaimed November to be the Municipal Government Works Month. Whereas the City of Taneytown was established in 1754, and whereas Maryland is the home of 157 other municipalities, and whereas municipal government represents the most responsive level of government, allowing citizens to have direct access to elected officials, and whereas in an effort to educate citizens about municipal government and the importance of their participation, the City of Taneytown is proud to promote municipal government awareness, and whereas municipalities have enhanced the quality of life for their respective residents, maintaining natural and historical sites and structures, and helping to make Maryland a great place to live, work, play, and explore. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Mayor and the City Council of the City of Taneytown, Maryland, hereby joins the Maryland Municipal League in declaring November to be the Municipal Government Works Month in Taneytown. Hooray. Here we go. So proclaimed. We'll be flying the Municipal Government Works flag out front all month. So if you want to look at the pretty flag, it's the one on this side.
There's an yes.
Next, we have the review of the minutes for October the 4th, October the 10th, the special meeting on November the 1st. Is there any additions or corrections to any of these minutes?
No, sir.
All right, on Monday night, we'll be up for approval. I'd like now to open the public hearing concerning two ordinances. Ordinance 13-2017, the variance request for the review of the Planning Commission, and ordinance number 14-2017, special exception request for review by the Planning Commission. These were discussed in the previous meetings and are now ready to receive any public comment. Does anybody care to speak on either one of these ordinances? Hearing nothing, I'll move on to the next item on the agenda. I'll leave the public hearing open for approximately another 15 or 20 minutes in case somebody comes in late that needs to say something. But the next item is the time for public comment pertaining to non-agenda items. Anyone care to make any comments on non-agenda items? Remember to hold our comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening, Catherine Adelaide, 9 Cortlandt Street. Hopefully all of you got an email that I sent out last week, but if you didn't, Clara just handed out the email that I sent. Did all of you get it? I know, Jim, you did because you responded to it.
They all received it here a few minutes ago if they didn't get it before.
Right, I wanted you to have a hard copy, so if you wanted to make some notes. So I'm not going to read it unless you want me to, but basically I was approached to coordinate a nativity project. It's offered free of charge to groups who will form a little committee. So the Republican Women's Club decided to do that, and we also reached out to the Tri-District Republican Club and got a volunteer. We had to have somebody build a creche. I'm an expediter, I'm not a construction person, so once I got that, I've made the application for it, and as you know, I'm supposed to coordinate any kind of permits or approvals. So I met with Jim, and he said there was no special use permit, and to just put it in writing to you guys, and it could be that simple. So I'm just here to answer any questions.
Well, maybe you could just kind of explain what your intentions are and what your ideas are behind this.
Well, the group is called the American Nativity Scene, ANS, and they provide free of charge a high-quality nativity set to private committees who will arrange for the scene to be assembled during the Christmas season and stored afterwards. The committee has made all of the appropriate arrangements with ANS, and the proposed dates for the nativity display are the Saturday after Thanksgiving, November 25th, to the Saturday after Christmas, December 30th. And we had wanted to place it at the police station, because not to interfere with Santa or anything, but I don't think he got a permit either. So I did, since I sent this out, I did speak to Chief Tyler. I was actually calling him about our club did a human trafficking program, so I was talking to him about that, but while I was on the phone, I mentioned it to him, and he said that, you know, he said he didn't have a problem with it, but of course, if you approved it, he would work with me to, you know, find a place for it. It's completely self-sufficient. It won't cost the city anything. We do the lighting on it, we put it up, we take it down. The group that donates them does ask that we do some kind of little ceremony, so if you wanted to be involved with that. So we just wanted to put Christ back in Christmas. Right now, I mean, their goal really is to put them into state capitals, but they also are open to municipal public areas too. And this is just from the website. I did include a website, has color pictures and shows, you know, it's very high quality and very pretty. We now have 14 states across America recognizing the constitutionally guaranteed rights of its citizens to openly practice their religious faith in the public square.
Okay. Well, Catherine, what I suggest we do is to have staff look at this and make sure we don't have any issues with anybody or anything, and report to us back on Monday night and let us know if we're okay with doing something like this. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, and there's the websites. If you go to the websites, they answer any legal issues and any dimensions.
Did Henry get a copy of this? Did you get a copy of it?
No, I'm sorry, I sent it to Clara, but he can have a copy. I brought my,
Here's an extra copy.
We'll make sure that he gets.
it has the dimensions. The websites really have a lot more information, so they're easy to get a hold of.
We'll let staff kind of make sure there's no hidden issues that we're not aware of, but and then report to us.
Mr. Mayor, in the meeting with Mr. Weeprick, he didn't think there was any special zoning limitation on that.
Well, I'm not too
Just a
concerned
sense of
about
it.
zoning. I'm just, you never know what kind of issues come up. I mean, it could be a insurance
He's a
issue
staff
or a
person.
liability issue or something like that. But anyway, just check it out and make sure there's no issues.
And feel free to contact me if staff has any questions. I can direct you more. On the website really is pretty thorough about what we have to do and, you know, who's responsible for what, and also what makes it constitutional and permissible for a municipality to okay it. So thank you for your time, and I hope you'll approve it.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments? Carl?
Carl Ebal. Gosh, I've got a frog in my throat. We have several of these displays in town. They're either in church properties or private properties. Are we really sure we want to put this on town property? That's just my comment. I wish you would think about that, please.
All right, well, we'll have time to have a little discussion on it Monday night when we get the complete details about what the impact is, if any. Anyone else? All right, let's move into the agenda. I'd like to ask the council tonight if there's any conflict of interest that they feel appear in the agenda that they need to recuse themselves for.
No, sir.
No.
No, sir.
Okay. Monday night, we have introduction of ordinance 15-217, or 2017, site plans for above-ground infrastructure. Jay, do you want to give us a little background on that?
Yeah, I'll be happy to, and I'll give you a brief background. If you have any specific questions, we can get into that. Both of these ordinances that you have, 15 and 16, are the city's first attempt to deal with the small cell sites that you've heard about. They're small, that's what they've been called around. We're not calling them small cell sites because we want to make sure we can regulate things that are related to that, hence the name above ground infrastructure. Basically, small cell sites are small antennas that are going to get mounted either on new or existing infrastructure. You can go to Westminster and see a bunch of them. And they amplify existing cell signals from different carriers so that there's more service data and bandwidth in a certain area. So think of it like it creates an umbrella in a certain area, magnifying the existing signals that are already here. So they don't replace cell towers, they don't replace things on our water tank. They are carrier specific, which means if you see one that either is going to be, for example, Sprint or, Verizon, they aren't for everybody. And this is the new and coming thing because it is a way to get more service to the people for the carriers without creating new cell towers and cell sites. So it is happening all over the country, and it has finally reached us here. The people that come and ask for these things are middlemen. They are not Verizon or Sprint. They hire companies to do that. Greencastle is one that you'll hear about. Mobility is another one that you'd hear about if you search the internet. They're the ones that are the middlemen on this. The issue is kind of convoluted because this type of service is regulated by the FCC on a federal level. So there are different task force on a federal level that talk about this. And the issue, which is gray, is do local governments have the authority to regulate them at all? And that's the fight on the federal level. And of course, the regulation that is a concern is if local governments didn't have the ability to regulate, they could come into the right-of-way in front of your house and erect a 200-foot pole if they would like to do that, or a 50-foot pole. That's what they basically could do, is what they say. We don't believe that the local governments can't regulate them, at least under certain circumstances. And the Maryland Municipal League has put in a legislative priority, and the mayor is on the legislative committee, can tell you about the priority shaping up. But it is a priority that's going to basically ask for state law to say that local governments can regulate these types of issues. However, that's going to go through the General Assembly. It's going to take some time. And even if they're wildly successful, that's going to make us have the authority to do what we think we have the authority to do anyway, which is pass things, which is what we're doing here. So that's how we kind of get to this point. The issue that we have is we believe, we've talked to the Planning Commission, the staff has talked about it, that it is in the public's best interest in the city of Taneytown that if somebody wants to use the public right-of-ways for these types of issues, these small cell service issues, that their proposal, their plan, their idea needs to be reviewed. It needs to be reviewed by the public body, which in this case would be the Planning Commission, and then all the public protections that go along with such a review, meaning the adjoining property owners where something's proposed would get notification. There'd be a notification at the site so people going by could see what they're talking about. There'd be public hearings so you could see, are they proposing to do a big tower, little tower, whatever at that point in time. So that is what your site plan 15-2017 basically changes a few words, and you can read it, I don't need to read it, but it changes a few words and then requires that these things would be regulated as basically commercial projects under the site plan ordinance. The next one on 16 is related to that because most of these current structures they're proposing are on poles. I mean, that's as simple as they get. Who knows what they'll be down the road, but today they're on poles. And Under the zoning ordinance, poles are exempt. They're not regulated by the zone. And that made sense back then, because if you had a pole that held your light or you had a pole that held your sign, why would you regulate that? But this is the facility itself. It is a pole with a stick on the top that's an antenna. And so therefore, it is believed that we should have zoning control about where these things go. For example, you might be okay with them in a commercial area. You might not be okay with them downtown on Main Street, and you might hate them an existing residential where everything is already underground. And we spent a lot of money, and the developers spent a lot of money to make sure all utilities are underground. You might not be a happy camper if you're the person that lives in a house and all of a sudden a pole goes in front of your house. So those are the two elements that this deals with. This is going to be a multi-phased approach for the city. The first thing are these two ordinances, and our anticipation would be you'd look at them today, you'd deal with them in December, and then we would be able to say, company that comes in, you're subject to our regulations. You have to go through the process. But if you read these closely, they talk about a reference to two different chapters. And one is chapter 181, which is the site plan, and one is another chapter in the 90s. And if you go to your code book, that chapter doesn't exist at all. So that chapter has to be written, and that's phase 2. So let me give you what phase 2 is about. Phase 2 are the details. How big can the pole be? How far away from a place can it be? Can it block the site view? Can you put poles where there's already not existing infrastructure? Can you require them to build underground vaults for these things? There's all sorts of things that need to be like a laundry list that when somebody would come and have their plan reviewed, the Planning Commission could say, this is what our goal is. We want to try to minimize the impacts, so on and so forth. So that's what that chapter in the 90s would eventually do. Our anticipation is to have a draft of that for you for the December meeting so that you can adopt it sometime in January, and then we would be ready to roll. The last element that the new chapter in the 90s would deal with is the actual usage part of the public right-of-way. And I don't want you, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you, but do not focus on it as a money thing. When someone wants to use the public right-of-way for private gain, they need to pay us, the citizens, for that purpose. And the example that you have is already in the chapters in the 90s is the cable TV. Cable TV runs their lines along the public right-of-way. That's how they get their service out there. They're a for-profit company. Not everybody gets the benefit of cable TV unless you pay for it, but the cable TV company has to pay a franchise fee to the government. And that franchise fee is the franchise to use the right-of-way. If this company's coming in, and they're considered a public utility, but if they're coming in and want to use the public right-of-way for-profit gain, because remember, not everybody benefits from this, then they need to pay some type of a franchise fee. Probably won't call it a franchise fee, but that's what it feels like. So if they were to erect a pole, they would have to pay for that pole because they're using something in the public domain and they need to compensate the citizens for it. So we need to set that type of situation where we can negotiate these types of agreements. We're not the first people to go through this, okay? The bigger cities have, but we're one of the second rounds of people. So like when I'm talking big cities, we're talking Baltimore, Frederick, Rockville, Gaithersburg, those types. We're in the second tier level where Westminster is dealing with it right now. They've already allowed some Greencastle ones to go up. So if you want to go, I mean, the city manager's gone around with our IT guy and taken pictures, but if you want to go down to Westminster behind the courthouse, by the parking lot where there's the cemetery on the pole, look up, it'll look something space-like, that's one of them. If you want to go to the road that's behind Roy Rogers that goes out towards Walmart, you know, off Sullivan Road, go up the hill, on the right in front of residential houses, there's one there too. They're all over, but those are the ones that I saw. What we're trying to do is to make sure that the citizens are protected. That's the bottom line, is that you don't want to wake up one day and go out and say, what are you guys doing in front of my house? You know, you want to have some things. So that's the purpose. The staff has met a couple times on this already. We believe that these two ordinances are needed, and they're needed in a quick manner because we want to get these in place for when we have people applying.
If I may ask, and on that note of protecting the citizens, you'd mentioned that Chapter 94 is a chapter that does not yet exist.
Right.
Would passage of these ordinances without the passage or having 94 do anything to, corrode or to undermine these two pieces of legislation?
It wouldn't undermine it. It would be, if we didn't follow through with Chapter 94, you don't have any teeth.
And when can we expect Chapter 94?
That would be, we were targeting December for that.
December? Okay.
So, and what I mean by no teeth is that this says that these site plans get reviewed. That's what you're doing tonight. So if somebody came in between now and December and says, I want my site plan reviewed, there would be nothing to review it against. There'd be no standards. 94 will set those.
I would imagine too that there would still be enough time to.
Yeah. We have people, we have had a company come in and already ask us. They've been talking to us for about a year, and we've been trying to figure out how to deal with it while the federal level dealt with it. Nobody's going to get anything done at the end of this month, and nobody's going to get anything into December, which is why we figured if we could get our act together so the beginning of the year we tell them we're ready to go, then we can start the process for them.
And on that other note, too, you'd mentioned a little while ago that the whole, disconnect between the federal regulations and the local regulations still has to go through the General Assembly, right? Now, if something like that doesn't go through and the FCC retains all rights to do whatever, how does that affect us if we've passed this?
It was two different levels. If the FCC right now has a case, it was a case called Greencastle versus somebody, and then that got thrown out and a new one started. So the FCC, and I was on the task force with the FCC to kind of deal with that. And the issue at the federal level wasn't completely, you're not allowed to regulate us, but it was almost that. For example, cities would say, fine, we can regulate you, and it's going to cost you $500,000 per pole fee. And that's when the community said that's not reasonable, and they went to the FCC. So it's that level of regulation. At the state level, what they're trying to do is preserve local autonomy and say that. Right now, we already know, because everybody's posturing for the General Assembly session. It hasn't started, but the work has.
Right.
And the telecommunications community has already gotten lobbyists. They've already started working. Baltimore City has told us what to expect, that they're going to probably work to try to get something passed that's very watered down. What the issue we have is, I believe that we can always regulate the construction of these things, but we may have some limitations on how much money we can charge for the franchise. So that.
Thank you. Yeah, that answers it perfectly. Thank you.
Other questions for Jay?
Yeah, I just would like to ask a question of our council. When America went through the rural electrification, electric poles were constructed on the public right-of-way, and easements were given. I own property that has an electrical easement on it. The electric company is a company that makes a profit, and they had the right to come in and alter that pole and put things on that pole, and they had the right to cut trees. And there's a large body of case law that constructed over the years to construct the public's right to get electricity into various remote places and in all places. And the pole easements were granted on public property because it was considered to the public's value to have electricity where there was none before. And I think that the argument would be made against these ordinances that the construction of these poles that provide cell phone service for areas like the dead area, there's a bunch of them around here where your cell phone drops off, could be argued in a court of law that they were part of the public's interest. These are private companies that want to put things up on top of a pole. A lot of these structures are additions to existing poles, and those poles have easements. Telephone poles along the street already have easements on the public property. They didn't pay for those because everybody agreed that electricity was good, and I think that you probably will get arguments from people if you charge too much money, but you might get arguments like in Greencastle that you don't have the right to do this at all. You don't have the right to restrict us from advancing technology in this way. And this was if you've been studying the FCC, there's been a good deal of division between the members of the FCC under the previous administration, this administration, about various ideas of the internet and various ideas of the best interest of people. So I'm concerned about some of the wording of this. I think we need to be careful because we open the city up for litigation if we're really aggressive on this. I read the language of it just roughly. Maybe I'll have more to say on Monday after I talk to some people about it. But most of these are existing things that already have easements, and adding something to them has been protected by case law after case law after case law. So I would just warn my colleagues to be careful about onerous restrictions on additions to existing pole right-of-ways.
Well, if your question was, can it be done? I guess the answer is, the electric company is going to rent the space to these people on their pole. So these people would have to rent the space from the electric company. They don't have the own right to come in and use the electric company's utilities. So you follow the argument that if the electric company can write a deal with these people to make money from them putting there, the city should have the ability to regulate all of them because it's now a for-profit thing, because not everybody benefits like the electric company where everybody gets electric in the area. Only the people that subscribe to that carrier are the ones that benefit. And that would be the distinction.
I just brought it up for my colleagues because there's a great deal. People tried to block certain poles to be putting in places, certain appendages to put on poles, the cutting of trees, the changing of structures. And lots of litigation's been
It's a
settled
little,
on this
it's a
matter.
little different from the electrification of America, rural America. I mean, there's no question that cell phones have been here and here to stay. And the technology that is emerging would have a detrimental effect on property values. And this is not something we should allow. You know, you just think of all the different cell phone commercials you see on television while watching a football game on Sunday afternoon. I know there must be 8 or 10 different cell phone companies that are advertising there. Now, what happens when they come down your street and want to put 10 poles in front of your house? Not 1, 10, or 8. We've got to have a say in what happens here, or we'll regret it, and that's the bottom line. So please, folks, when we introduce these, take some time and read them over. And one thing that we need to remember is the stronger this legislation is, the better chance it has to establish itself. Even if the General Assembly should pass a similar type piece of legislation, the fact that we have a stronger rule in effect will take the day, because our rules can be stronger than the General Assembly, but not weaker than the General Assembly. So it's important that we get what we want, and then revise as we see things happening. I mean, what is the technology going to be 20 years from now? Are we going to have a bunch of abandoned poles sitting in front of our house? Right now, we've got one of the biggest problems we had at Streetscape was all these wires hanging across Baltimore Street. Many of those are not even being used, and we can't do anything to force the utility companies to remove them. But yet, it's a mess. It looks like spaghetti. And, project that 20 years into the future, when every block has got a half a dozen or more cell tower poles, and then all of a sudden something else comes along and we don't need those poles anymore. And they just abandon them. Then what do we do? So when this issue came up before the legislative committee at Maryland Municipal League, there was 15 different legislative action requests. And the committee was asked to vote on 4 items, up to 4 items. This item received the second most vote behind the HURs for repairing our roads. So this is something that not only concerns us, but it concerns all the municipalities in Maryland, all the towns in Maryland, all the counties in Maryland. So it's something that's before us. And rather than just sit by and let it happen, we need to be prepared. So I'm glad we're acting quickly and swiftly on this, and if it needs to be revised in the future in whatever direction, we'll have the ability to do it because we'll have the infrastructure, or we'll have the foundation laid to be able to deal with it. Thank you, Jay. Anybody else care to make any comments on the public hearing time? Ordinance 13-2017 or ordinance 14-2017, talking about variances and special exceptions going before the Planning and Zoning Commission. Anybody care to make that before I close the public hearing?
Hi, Robin Fraser, 142 Bentley. I just wanted to say that I oppose any more layers of government in a process that already works, and that I thought Councilman Fraser did a good job of explaining how the process works and why we don't need another layer of bureaucracy weighing in on probably sometimes already too much government interference with people's property rights. And that if somebody has appealed a decision to the Board of Zoning Appeals, that planning commissioners are, I'm sure, are free to go and weigh in and make their recommendations at that zoning appeal meeting. I know in the county that if the planning and zoning board had a problem with something that went to the appeals board, that they went and weighed in, or the attorney weighed in with what their recommendations were. So I would say there probably is still opportunity to weigh in if they had a strong opinion on something, and not to, and I just want to say I'm opposed to building in an extra layer of looking that is unnecessary and just has the effect of growing government and potentially wasting tax dollars if there's additional work that the Planning and Zoning Committee has to do because of the new ordinances.
Okay,
So I'm opposed.
thank you. Anyone else care to make any comments?
Catherine Adelaide, 9 Cortlandt Street. I'm also opposed to it. I just had an experience in Frederick County at their planning board where it's, again, the idea that it's going to be better for the citizens. They'll have notice, they'll have a public hearing, and yet the danger politically with that is, as happened there, was a lot of citizens weren't notified. And if there's political motivations on that kind of whatever the development is that's coming through, the planning board has a natural conflict of interest because it's appointed by you, by the mayor. So it's appointed by the government, and there's somewhat of a conflict of interest of how they're really going to represent the citizens. So I normally had been not really a problem with it, but having just testified and also witnessed how these things look like a good idea in the beginning, and then suddenly they don't work out the way everyone says they're going to work out. And actually, I've observed citizens being denied their property rights, while if there's political spin on it and the government, those planning board members all know they're appointed by you, and there's just a natural conflict of interest there. So I've changed my mind on it. Thank you.
This doesn't have anything to do with the planning board's powers. The planning board, just for everybody's information, is an independent body. It doesn't answer to council, and it doesn't really receive any influence from council. It's a completely independent body.
Well, they are appointed by the mayor with confirmation from the council, I believe. And so they're not elected officials. There's no accountability to the people.
So is every other board that operates in the city.
Well, it's a conflict with many of those boards because they can be used as the arm of the government to just rubber stamp.
That's why we hold general elections. All right, anybody else have any comments?
I just have a quick question.
Could you identify yourself, please?
Yes, it's Jane Doe.
And where do you live, please?
I am homeless.
You're
So-
homeless.
So I have a quick question.
I'm not sure I'll allow it.
This is board, just a question, a
No, you
clarification.
have to identify yourself if you speak before this body.
Uh-huh. You have that written down, a policy somewhere?
That's my policy in conducting.
It's your
meetings.
policy that wasn't passed by anybody?
Please sit down.
All right, I'm just
Identify yourself or sit
clarifying.
down.
I did identify myself.
You give me your address.
I'm homeless.
Not sure I believe that.
You know what? You don't question anybody else who comes up here before you. This is just a public hearing. I'm not asking, I'm just making a comment, so there's
I
nothing
wanted to make
big deal
a
here.
comment on a public hearing that has to do with the city of Taneytown.
That's right, I come into
You need to be a
Taneytown a
resident of
lot.
the city of Taneytown.
No, you don't. You have to be a member of the public. And you know, you have people come into this town and they buy things, they drive through, they're affected by this town. So I just have a question for you.
All right,
It's my understanding that the Board of Zoning Appeals is, as you were earlier saying, is appointed by, well, you would recommend, whatever, it's appointed by the council, correct?
no, I appoint them.
You appoint them and then the council confirms. And the Board of, okay, so that's separate from the Board of Zoning and Planning, the Zoning and Planning Commission, right?
That's right.
Now, is that done the same way?
Same way.
Oh, same way. Okay, so
Every board that we have in this town is done the same way.
okay, so basically what you have is two separate boards, or commission, board, whatever we're saying, with separate powers, right? And they're both pretty much separate groups of people, okay? So,
Checks and balances is what.
right, okay, so that's great. But here's the thing. When they're not on the board, they're just citizens like the rest of us, correct? So when you have, for example, someone under the ordinance can go to the Board of Appeals, and that's how it's set up, then that other board, who are just citizens too, that other board has the same opportunity, which I believe is what Ms. Fraser was saying, has the same opportunity, like the rest of the public, to come make all their recommendations, just along with the rest of the public when there's a public hearing. So having a special place for them that they can make a special review and a special recommendation seems a little out of line and a little extra. Do they have some special thing that's above and beyond all the other citizens? I think that's a problem.
Well, thank you for your comments. Anyone else care to make a comment? This is the last comment I could receive under the public hearing.
Hi, Rhonda, 168 Grand. So as I read these ordinances, 13 and 14, it says that it's going to be another layer, which would be your planning commission, and they're reviewing. So as the public, what we would have to do if we had an issue, first it would come up to the planning commission, we would have to go to a planning commission board meeting and see what they were going to recommend and have comments to them, and then they recommend to the next layer of government, and then we have to go to that meeting and then hear what they propose and then what they vote on it. So like, it's just an added layer of more government and more issues to go through when someone just wants to plan something on their land or that's been already designated for all these years, where you just go and you get a permit, or you go and you put in site plans and somebody approves it or they don't approve it. If it's something special, then it should go through an extra layer maybe, but not every issue get reviewed by a planning commission.
Thank you for your
Thank
comments.
you.
All right, let me close the public hearing. We'll move on with the rest of the agenda. Monday night, we'll adopt ordinance 13-2017 variance requests reviewed by the Planning Commission, unless you choose not to. And ordinance 14-2017 special exception request reviewed by the Planning Commission. And also Resolution 2017-16, the water allocation for November. Anybody have any further questions on any of those issues up for adoption on Monday night?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Went back and got the original ordinances before this addition was put in. This is number 14, as it currently, you can get it off the website, off the code. And this adds another paragraph here. This is number 13, the way it currently shows on the ordinance. So what's really being done here today that I think that's gotten these comments during the hearing period is the addition of this sentence listed as number A that says, said application shall be reviewed by the Taneytown Planning and Zoning Commission. So that means that the people that are being affected are the applicants. Up at the top it says, whereas the mayor and city council believe it is in the best interest of the citizens of Taneytown. I don't think this is in the best interest of anyone to add another layer of review of an application. I asked for a question when this first came up, and first of all, there was no action. I've been to these meetings. There was no action where we asked the attorney to draft this language. I don't know where these languages come from. They just show up in our agenda. Somebody's written language to put in the law that doesn't exist in the law.
We started talking about this in August, didn't we?
Yeah, but I don't think that's the way it ought to be, that they write without a vote, unless it was the intent of the council to direct them to add the planning commission, that staff should follow the intent of the council.
Councilman, we have discussed this issue at 2 meetings a month in August and September and October. And now we're here in November discussing it again in 2 meetings a month. So we're going to have a vote on Monday night, and if the majority of council feels like it's appropriate, it'll move forward. If they don't, it'll fail. And you're free to vote either way.
Well, I wanted to finish what I was saying. It says here, prior to the public hearing before the appeal board, the structure of an application needs to be discussed before you vote on Monday, and this is the work session. An applicant comes in with something they want to do, and I think Mrs. Bean referred to this. They come to the staff member, and Jim is here. He knows the zoning ordinance better than anyone. He's going to make a recommendation whether or not this is consistent or whether there's some problem with setbacks or some other requirement of the code, because he's the most familiar expert about the code. Then the application files this application for permission to go forward. If they don't agree with the position of the staff, they have the right to an appeal. And the body that should hear that appeal is the Board of Zoning Appeals. That's why it has that name. And its purpose is to allow a public vetting with more than one opinion for people that know this zoning code. To add the planning commission before the person has a right to appeal is not only cumbersome. I asked the people at one of the previous meetings how many have had a Board of Zoning Appeals application at any venue. The problem with adding this language that's in italics here to both of these laws, both 13 and 14, is it's unnecessary to do so. The normal process is you get an opinion from the administrator, you have an appeal right, and if the appeals board is not consistent with the law, you can go to the circuit court and get that overturned. But to add the planning commission is, just as Mrs. Bean said earlier, an extra layer that is not to the best interest of the citizens of Taneytown. It slows down projects. It allows an additional group of busybodies to have their opinion about what things look like. And my goodness, we had a planning commission in the 1990s that with a couple representatives from Eldersburg that wanted to dictate how everybody built everything, what trees they planted and everything. So I think it's very dangerous and not good and not in the best interest of the citizens to adopt the 13 and 14 on Monday, adding the planning commission inside of a process and disrupting that process.
Let's move on.
With extra litigation.
We know. You said
it's
this
expensive.
You said this in August and September and October and now in November. So this is the 4th month and the 6th meeting that you've said this, 5th meeting.
Well, have I persuaded you that this is a bad thing to do?
I don't have to persuade me, you have to persuade the rest of the
Well, how about
council.
my colleagues? Can't you see the dangerous and expense for an applicant?
We will
to
know
have
the
to
answer to
prepare
that Monday,
for
won't we?
addition? No, I'm asking them now to comment on it.
We'll know the answer to that Monday. So let's move on to
Well,
the
Mr.
city
Mayor.
manager's report.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, can we have an opportunity to speak? I don't think it's fair that he get to monopolize all of our
No, I didn't
opportunities.
monopolize anything. I'm
Yeah,
asking
okay.
for
You're
you
still
to
doing
I
it.
asked for comments
I'm
for.
asking you to
for-
speak
for
up
these
about this
ordinances.
matter.
Please offer your comments.
So there are a lot of people who are obviously not aware of the planning process or exactly what this does. This does not affect everything that happens in the city. This affects, I'm sorry?
Applicants, it affects applicants.
It affects people who want variance requests and special exceptions, things that have to go to zoning appeals anyway. Now, what I find interesting is everyone says it's another layer of government, whereas in reality, it's giving the public a second opportunity to hear about it. Now, I know there's the anti-government thing going on right now, and that's spectacular and everything. But the problem is you're giving people more opportunities to hear it. It's going to be in front of people more often. And it's not every single thing that goes through. I think people need to stop exaggerating these things. And that's the problem we have, is they take a little bit and they exaggerate it out and make it sound like it's the worst thing in the world, when in reality, they don't even understand the process to begin with. So I ask the council, read it, understand it like I know you're able to, and then vote accordingly.
Anyone else have any comments?
I just want to reiterate what I said last month. There's this idea that, this process is going to have final say on it and everything, but in black and white, in the language, in this legislation, it says advisory comments and recommendations. Not that they will have the final say in everything, but they will be offering comments. That's simple.
And we're
Can I ask
we're
Councilman-
belaboring this whole thing.
Vigliotti, a
So
question.
let's move on to the city manager.
Has he ever been an applicant before the Board of Zoning Appeals? Has he ever done an application for a project before the Board of Zoning Appeals?
I'm ready to move on to city manager's report, Henry.
It affects applicants, and that's not good for the city.
We've passed that item on the agenda, John.
Well, he failed to comment, failed to respond to that direct question.
Because the mayor moved this on. I'm trying to be respectful.
No, this is the only time we have a right to speak, is on
redundant.
Wednesday night work
You're being
sessions.
redundant.
We're supposed to be allowed to
All
speak on
before.
Wednesday night voting
You've
sessions.
said it over and over and over again ad infinitum. We don't need to hear
I
any
don't
more.
believe that's accurate. That's your opinion of it. You just said on Monday we're going to vote.
That's enough.
On Monday we're going to vote.
Henry?
Wow.
And we're going to vote on Monday, and now's the time to talk about the details of what you're going to vote on.
I think it's my turn.
No, in what way is it your turn?
He gave me the floor.
Henry,
What are
it's
you
your
about to
fault.
say?
Nothing about
Henry,
this.
Please give us the city manager's report.
Oh, jeez. Well, anyway, if you all recall, last Wednesday, we reviewed all the capital projects, and we're in the process at this particular moment in time of prioritizing them, and we will come back to you again with the six-year plan. Along with that, we're also in the process of coming up with a six-year capital equipment plan as well. Beyond that, I had a wonderful time in Florida.
Great.
What Henry is referring to, of course, is a special meeting we held on the 1st of November that really projected our capital projects out 25 years, and it was just such a huge amount of data to deal with that council felt it would be more prudent to narrow the focus and consolidate into a six-year plan, and that's what we're doing, so that's what that referred to. Any questions for Henry?
I'd like to make a suggestion, if I may, regarding the capital projects. I think one that needs to be added and researched, and I'd like to see in the six-year plan, is a larger storage facility for the wastewater treatment plant for the cake that comes off the belt press. The issue, and I know because I get to hear about it every night from my wife, is we fill it up too quickly, and the contractor, only a certain times a year they can spread that on fields, And by them spraying on fields is what saves us so much money. They don't take it to the landfill and pay outrageous fees on that. Problem is, we're filling it up very quickly here, and then they can only spread it at certain times of year, and it becomes an issue where it starts to bottleneck. And now we're going to be adding more developments, more people, more waste. It's going to be a larger issue.
Okay, that's larger storage, okay.
Yeah.
I'll talk to Kevin.
Yeah, I've had brief conversations with Kevin about it, and he had a couple ideas, but it's something I'd like to see on capital projects, to kind of
Well,
get rid of that
we can
issue.
put it there, and again, remember.
I understand.
Yeah.
Right, I understand, but I mean, we need to see what it's going to take and all of that.
All right, any further questions for Henry? Any questions on the department reports? All right, how about the legal report, Jay? What do you have for us?
2 items. One announcement, MML is putting together a attorney working group on the small cell legislation. So I'm going to be part of that. So if you have any specific issues that you want dealt with on a technical level, we're not going to do what the legislative committee is doing. So you need to talk to the mayor on that, but we're going to talk about the technical issues at that. So that's happening in relatively short term, so in the next couple weeks. The second issue is related to your third action item under new business, and so I figure I'll just talk to you about it right now, and then you can ask any questions now or later. You see top coating of Meadowbrook 4A. So what this is related to is blacktop, okay, it's not glamorous. And under the Public Works Agreement that we have, we basically state that you have to have a certain percentage, 70 is the number, of the lots constructed along a certain area, meaning the street you want to provide. You have to have 70% of those lots constructed before the developer is allowed to put the top coat down. Okay, so the base coat's out there now, and you can see that in Meadowbrook. And that means that the manholes stick out a little bit, the curbs have a little cut there, the valve boxes sit out. And the goal is you have all this construction traffic going across the base coat that when 70% or so are done, then you can put the top coat down and you have less chance of damaging it. That's the purpose. The second thing in a public works agreement that we have says that after you put the top coat down, the city can wait a year, meaning through a winter, to accept it, okay? Because we want to see, you know, how the winter, the frost heaves and all that. We want to make sure that it's okay. So we have to let it overwinter a year before we're ever willing to accept it. So those are the two parameters that we have going on. At Meadowbrook, you have a situation where in Meadowbrook Section 4A, there are 27 lots. So 70% is 19 lots of that situation. And right now, as we sit, they have settled on 11 of the 19, so they're below their 70% threshold. However, they have contracts, they've settled on 12 of the 19, and they have contracts that will have been started and begun in the remainder of this year, so November and December, on 11 more. So they believe that they will have 12 plus 11, 23, over the 70% by the end of this year. However, the asphalt plants closed down in the beginning of December, and what they really want to do is they really want to top coat the project right now so that it can overwinter right now, so that they don't have to wait an entire another winter, which would be not until 2019 would they be eligible to have that accepted. So you got the quandary that they're at. This was reviewed by the staff. The staff says that there's no problem for this. The telltale was it was sent over to Public Works, and Kevin sent his guys out to do an inspection, and what he came up with is he doesn't have any problem. The inspection, because all the manholes have like blacktop around them, so they're not rough, you know, they're like little mounds, all that has to be taken away, and there has to be repairs made to those before the top coat can go down. So he's okay with that, and the developer is under the understanding is that when we inspect again, if there's any damage to the top coat, you're going to have to fix it, just as if you would normally. So since this is out of sequence, we need you all to authorize that if that is something you'd like to do. So that's what you're being asked to, is authorizing the top coat.
So what they're asking is that we take a chance on these lots that have contracts on them, that they actually will close.
Right. They're saying that we want to top coat it now. It'll overwinter right now, and then in the spring, you'll already have your 70%, and the overwinter will have occurred. They're gonna fix any damage anyway, up until we accept it. So they're saying there's really no risk for us. The only thing is it doesn't tie up a huge portion of their money in the letter of credit until 2019. Because that's the issue, is that until we accept it, we don't release the letter of credit, so it sits there.
Who assumes the snow removal on these streets if they do in fact top coat it?
They still, until we accept it, they still have to do it. Which makes it actually easier and better because nobody's gonna destroy the infrastructure by hitting plow blades on it.
So let me ask, off what the mayor had said, if we go ahead and okay this, but then the settlements don't work out, right? What ends up happening with us? How do we factor into things? Do we have any obligations? Is there any concerns that we have to address at that point?
No, the idea is that the road goes down, let's say it goes down, there's no damage over the winter, we still wouldn't accept it until the 100% is done. So if they didn't finish 70 by December, it wouldn't matter, they still have to have 100 until they come to us and say, will you accept this road?
One thing about it is the issue is that construction traffic over this new road could further damage it when we take possession. But if the houses are under construction, whether they settle or not, the construction will be complete. And that will, I guess, in effect, serve the same purpose. The construction traffic will be less, and consequently, the impact will be less. So shouldn't be too much of
The
an impact.
construction is done on the lots that they think they will close on, right?
Not the house constructions. So what ruins the side, all the utilities are in. What ruins the streets are when they bring the people to construct the foundations.
Okay.
And that's what ruins them. And so I guess it's this way. If they're gonna get ruined, they're gonna get ruined anyway, and the developer still has to fix it. But what he wants to do is he wants to not have our over the winter policy. So if he has 70% by April next year, he would put the road in then without ever asking anybody. But then it would have to sit until, let's say, March of the following
Of
year.
the following year.
And he'd have to fix all the damage anyway. So he's saying, can I put it in so that in the event I'm finished with this section in October, you're not gonna say, hey, that's great, but you have to let it sit over a winter. That's the point.
So really, they're the ones taking the risk on this.
Yeah.
Right.
At the same time, I'm wondering, I assume when they're finished with this section that they're going to start the next section. Is that correct?
Well, you know how they did 4A and they did 4B right behind it, and so
Right.
it's hard to see where they both start and stop. But 5 is not even in the pipeline.
Not in talks
I
right
mean,
now.
I think they have preliminary approval, but it's not
Okay.
good for suit.
Well, it kind of seems to me when they want to get this done early so they don't have to stick around for it, makes me wonder what their intents are. Do they plan on sticking around to finish the rest of Meadowbrook, or?
It's not a money issue, it's a cash flow type of issue.
Okay, that makes sense.
And, I mean, I don't know the numbers, but I can kind of give you an idea, we'll make up the numbers. If it costs $500,000, that's what we're kind of talking about, big numbers, to top coat this, that $500,000 is gonna sit there until we accept
Right.
it. So they would rather spend the $500,000 now and have us say, yes, it's good, so that we can release it in April of next year, as opposed to sitting on $500,000 in the bank until April of 2019 for the same decision.
Okay.
And one of the things that Kevin, his requirement was that he would do inspections, and even inspections the curb, the manholes, and the valves. So he's okay with the way it is. And just for a little point is, when we go into the winter, they don't have a top coat. They are responsible for the snow removal, and typically that's when a lot of that damage occurs, to the curbs and to the manholes, because it's kind of hard to see where that manhole is, and they hit it with the blade.
And from the citizens' perspective that live on that street, they hate it when it's not top coated. okay, they feel like they live in a construction site. So we're always asked, why can't the top coat go on? And in the end, it's for your protection, because if it's ruined, you have to live with it. But in this situation, the numbers are so small. It's different than dealing with like a Creekside at 66. We're talking a total of 27. So
We did have, and I think we did have an issue at Creekside after the top coat was put on as well, and they made the repair.
How is Creekside coming, by the way? I mean, we got our punch list all complete?
No, not yet.
well,
No.
everything they've
Why
done
am I
is
surprised at that?
Hey, but they did dig for the sidewalk.
the back sidewalk is underway, maybe?
Did they pour yet, or is it still just dug up? Jim? They didn't pour yet?
I haven't seen it poured, but I didn't get out there for the last couple of days.
Okay.
So brake iron sidewalk is okay, or it's underway.
Getting there. Right.
They got all the approvals to do the state sidewalk and apparently have a bid that Jim has looked at, so they're still planning for. We have the deeds that we reviewed for whatever the roads and things like that. Of course, we're not going to accept them for a while anyway. And the transformer move has been ordered from Potomac Edison, and I guess it's at their leisure to do that, so.
Right.
So there, no completions yet, no check marks.
But there's progress.
Glacial, but yes.
Right.
I like that, glacial.
Nothing under old business. Let's move into new business. Any questions for Jay, first of all? All right. Monthly financial report. Anyone have any questions on the monthly financial report? It'll be up for approval on Monday night. How about the accounts payable? Anybody have any questions on the accounts payable? Hearing nothing, we'll approve those on Monday night. And we've already talked about the top coating of Meadowbrook 4A, so we don't have to go through that again. And I guess we have time now for some public comments on any items that might have been on the agenda. Any
Before you leave new business, Mr. Mayor, before you leave new business, I'd like under the Monday agenda, to include this request. This committee has paid for this beautiful crash, and there's no cost. This group of citizens agreed to take care of all the cost of it, and it sounds from the interaction with staff and your discussion tonight like we should give our blessing to it on Monday because of the timing.
It'll be on the agenda Monday night.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you to do. Thank you very much.
All right, now we have public comment pertaining to any agenda items. Anybody care to make any comments regarding items that appeared on the agenda this evening?
Marvin Flickinger, 80 Swanham Street, Taneytown. Once again, I come here tonight and hear the Fraser Group continue to chastise you folks. I feel sorry for you. It was brought up about something that you were doing is going to be a waste of the taxpayers' money. And I think about the $50-some thousand that this Fraser Group has cost this city in the last 2 years unnecessarily. And then they come here and chastise you of spending money unnecessarily. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Catherine Adelaide, 9 Cortland. I don't think having a public comment is chastising somebody, and the $50,000 plus was an expense that occurred because your city council broke the Open Meetings Act law. And had they admitted to that, the thing could have been settled. So that cost does not fall on
This is on the agenda.
Councilman Frazier. I'm just...
Let's hold our comments to agenda items.
Well, regarding the, again, the 2 ordinances, the the, they do involve the possibility of, when you say that it's something more for the citizens, you said the citizens have more access, and yet Councilman Frazier was just, you said we've heard it in this month and this month and this month. Well, not everybody has been here for that. So again, to shut him down when he was trying to get the rest of you to make a comment, the purpose of the Open Meetings Act is for the public to observe your process of how you do things. And so not every citizen was here, so you might not have wanted to hear it, but I was interested in what other council people, once again.
I offered the council every opportunity to make a comment. But again, I think, like me, they've heard it enough.
Well, maybe those people have, but any citizens here, I wouldn't mind hearing how the other councilmen felt. In fact, just kind of sweeping it all to Monday and saying, we'll just vote on it when nobody's really responding. I'd like some kind of response about the nativity scene idea, see what people, where they are, if they had questions, and it's just, we'll just vote everything on Monday. Well, why are we having a work session? The idea of the work session is to really have more open debate, and we're supposed to be able to see your process. When it looks kind of hidden, as if it's already been decided, behind closed doors, all the decisions have been made, and everything's going to be voted on a certain way on Monday. That doesn't really induce citizens to come in and, give comments and participate. If the council, also, I observed the planning board
We value all the comments of the citizens of Taneytown.
Yeah, but
That's
he
why
was
we
trying
invite
to
you to
get
do that.
more process going on with the various council members, and just because you were tired of it, and maybe some of these people were, but I haven't been here all those times, or I haven't, anyway.
Council has ample time to speak their mind on any item that's on the agenda.
Well, nobody was really speaking to it when he thought about it. I would just
Thank you.
check out section 3303 of the Open Meetings Act, because you're in danger.
Any
No.
other comments on agenda item?
I'll get it. I'll be back tomorrow.
Hi, Rhonda Grand. I have a comment about this water issue and how it states in here a lot about the limited water supply and protecting the limited water supply and allocating the water, and how it specifically says that it's of a public health, safety, and general welfare of the city, and it could be exhausting the water supply. But it also says that you are going to ensure the development of existing and pending and future development. So when you allowed for your capital businesses to build and develop ahead of their schedule, and it all allocates water with capital building, residential or commercial. Hopefully in this, you are allocating water and limiting or regulating the water so it doesn't get exhausted to the residents that do live here.
That's the purpose of it.
Because
Yes.
I know that
Just every month.
when you go past some of these commercial buildings that have been able to expand their facilities, some of the building is behind trees, and when you look around that building's pretty big, and I'm sure that they've increased their water usage. So, thank you.
All right. I will, before I ask for adjournment, I want to remind everybody that it's Veterans Day on Saturday. Encourage you to remember your veterans, and just let you know of an invitation we received. I received an invitation from the Monocacy Valley VFW in Harney, inviting the mayor and city council to an event on November the 11th, Saturday, at 11 a.m. And if you would like to attend, you certainly all are invited because your name is on there. It's post 6918 Honor Guard will give a 21-gun salute, and there'll be refreshments afterwards, and there'll be a speech from Post Commander Michael Hess. And I've been to these in the past, and I'm sure some of you others have too. It's a very nice ceremony. So if you can make it on Saturday at 11 in Harney, please try to do so. Hey, he wants to know if
Corner of a road.
we're going to, how many people are coming. So if you want to email me, I can forward it to him, or if you'd like to respond directly, you can do that too. It's 410-756-5444. And his email's fm32@erols.com. But if you'd like
What's
to
the phone
forward it
number
to me,
again?
I'll make sure I send it to him. If you want to do it on your own, you can do that too.
Oh, there it is. Thank you very much. It's 544. Okay. Terrific.
Now, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.